We need to write Chapter 1 of 12 for Episode 21. The series is Through the R-Ift, Humanity's Dreadnought Armada sent Orms the alien Sci-Fi ASF. Previous context, Hale escaped Colossus, secured stabilizer and invasion data, transmitted to Fleet Command, jumped away. Silence feels like peace. New chapter should start after jump with Fleet rendezvous. Focus on grand clash between arrogant aliens and resourceful humans. Use crisp military dialogue, high stakes, long detailed 801,000 words. Avoid acutes, repetitive phrases. Output only story text. The jump exit point bled Hale's eyes back from white noise to star-flecked black. The rust bucket's bridge smelled of burnt insulation and cold sweat. 3 seconds of silence stretched before the tactical hologram flickered alive, painting the void with icons. 112 hull markers. Humanity's Dreadnought Armada hung in a dispersed formation, each ship a slab of angular armor and grafted alien salvage. The ASF Indomitable sat at center, its spinal railgun still glowing from a recent discharge. Hale exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. ASF Command, this is Rust Bucket Actual. Mission package uploaded, stabilizer core secured. I've got the full siege grid coordinates for the Xyloth homeworld. A beat. Then the comm channel opened with a voice that didn't bother with pleasantries. Copy, Rust Bucket. Admiral Voss's final transmission confirmed your extraction. We have your data. Stand by for docking instructions. Final transmission. Hale's jaw tightened. Voss had bought him the window by overloading the Colossus's reactor core. No body, no debris, just a signature spike and then nothing. The Rust Bucket's thrusters fired a correction burn, nudging the battered corvette toward the Indomitable's main hangar. Through the forward viewport, Hale watched the fleet's geometry shift. Destroyers slid into screening positions. Logistics freighters pulsed their beacons, exchanging ammunition pallets and coolant lines. The dreadnoughts themselves, 6 of them, each nearly 2 kilometers of black steel and jury-rigged Xyloth plating, rotated in unison. A silent clockwork. They're waiting on us, said Lieutenant Choi from the engineering station. His face was gaunt, one eye still crusted with dried blood from the Colossus's final decompression. Command spooled the jump calculations 3 hours ago. They've been holding the formation steady. Hale nodded. The stabilizer core in the cargo bay wasn't just a trophy. Without it, the human fleet's rift drives would tear themselves apart trying to jump inside the alien home system's gravity well. The Xyloth had seeded every approach with void anchors, a web of destabilization fields that turned FTL transit into a suicide lottery. But now they had the core, a fragment of the Colossus's own power source, and the coordinates to every anchor node in the siege perimeter. The bucket drifted into the hangar bay. Magnetic clamps seized the hull with a groan. Atmosphere cycled. Hale unstrapped from the command seat and stood, knees popping. Choi, get the core to engineering. Have them mounted in the Indomitable's housing within the hour. I'll be in the Admiralty conference. He didn't wait for confirmation. The hangar deck was a controlled hurricane of activity. Techs in vacuum-rated gear swarmed the bucket's hull, patching micro-punctures. A line of crew and fleet greys saluted as he passed. Hale returned it mechanically, his mind already 2 decks up. The conference room was a cramped chamber behind the CIC, its walls lined with displays showing real-time telemetry. 3 holographic figures materialized as Hale entered. Admiral Chen, her face carved from glacier ice. Fleet Commander Reyes, a stocky man with a data pad fused to his palm, and Dr. Enya Kovac, the civilian rift specialist who wore a bloodstained lab coat like armor. Captain Hale, Chen said, no small talk. The stabilizer core is being fitted. We have a 12-minute window after it's online to execute the jump. The Xyloth will detect the surge and collapse their void anchors within 15. That gives us 3 minutes to engage their orbital defense grid before they can reconfigure. 3 minutes to crack a siege that's held for 6 months, Reyes added, not looking up from his pad. Ground forces have already staged their assault shuttles. If we don't secure a corridor through the planetary shield, they burn in transit. Hale stepped to the central holodable. The Xyloth homeworld rotated in red light, studded with orbital platforms, defense satellites, and what the scans designated as void artillery, massive emplacements that projected destabilizing pulses into any approaching ship. The void anchors were the net, these were the teeth. The stabilizer makes us immune to the void effects, Hale said, but we're still flying into direct fire. What's the ship-to-ship ratio? Chen answered. 6 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, 40 destroyers. The Xyloth have 3 Colossus-class vessels in orbit, plus the defense grid. The Colossi are vulnerable now. They lost their command link when you cracked the flagship. But they've got enough point defense to gut a standard approach. Standard is dead, Hale said. We need a surgical corridor. Dreadnoughts stack fire on a single axis, pulverize a lane, then the cruisers punch through to the inner shell. Destroyers screen for fighters and missiles. Once we're past the grid, the dreadnoughts split and engage the Colossi individually. Reyes finally looked up. That's not a plan, that's a suicide charge with extra steps. It's It's the only charge we have. Hale met his eyes. The Xyloth expect us to scatter to try to break through at multiple points. They've designed the grid to cover every angle, so we don't use an angle, we use brute force on one vector. They won't adjust fast enough. A long silence. Dr. Kovacs spoke first. The stabilizer will hold for 6 minutes at maximum power draw. After that, the core fractures. You have one jump in, one fight, and one jump out. If the core fails while we're inside the gravity well, every ship goes dark. Chen didn't flinch. Then we make sure we don't need a second jump. She turned to Hale. Your ship is combat capable, barely, but she can sit on the periphery and relay tactical data. I'm not asking for a front row seat. You'll have one anyway. Your data made this possible. You'll coordinate the firing sequences from the Indomitable's auxiliary CIC. Chen killed the hologram. Mission clock starts in 1 hour. Get your crew briefed. Hale left the conference room. The silence in the corridor was different from the void's quiet. It was human, focused, alive. Somewhere a welder's torch sparked. A rating laughed at a bad joke. The fleet was going to war, and for the first time in months they knew where they were aiming. Chapter 2, Vector of Fire. The Indomitable's auxiliary CIC was a cavern of steel and light, every console alive with tactical overlays. Hale stood at the center, headset locked, eyes fixed on the shifting lattice of the Xyloth grid. The alien defense web was a geometry of arrogance, perfect symmetry, overlapping kill zones, no blind spots. It was the kind of design that assumed no enemy would dare to punch straight through. Humans were about to prove them wrong. Fleet reports stabilizers green. Chen's voice cut across the channel, clipped and steady. All dreadnoughts align on Vector 17. Destroyer screen, form wedge, fighters hold until breach. Acknowledgements rolled in, each captain terse, professional. No wasted words. Hale's console pulsed as telemetry streamed from the outer destroyers. He saw the grid's energy fluctuations, the way the Xyloth nodes pulsed in rhythm. They were confident, almost lazy. They thought the humans would scatter like prey. Indomitable, confirm firing sequence, Chen ordered. Hale keyed in the relay. Sequence locked. Primary salvo in 20 seconds. Destroyers will saturate the grid with decoys. Dreadnoughts follow with heavy ordnance. Fighters exploit breach. Copy. Chen's tone was iron. All ships prepare to burn. The CIC dimmed as power rerouted. Hale felt the hum of the stabilizer core through the deck plating. 6 minutes. That was the hard limit. 6 minutes to break through, cripple the colossi, and escape before the core fractured. He forced the thought down. Focus on the vector. Focus on the breach. The countdown hit 0. The destroyers fired first, hundreds of missiles streaking into the void, each one broadcasting false signatures. Grid lit up, alien interceptors surging to meet the phantom swarm. Hale watched the Xyloth response unfold, precise but predictable. They were reacting to shadows. Dreadnoughts fire, Chen commanded. The human dreadnoughts unleashed their fury. Railgun slugs, plasma lances, kinetic penetrators, all converging on a single point in the grid. The void shook with the violence of it. Hale's console flared as the grid buckled, one node collapsing under the concentrated assault. The symmetry fractured. A hole opened, breach confirmed, Hale snapped. Vector clear, fighters go. The fighter wings surged forward, engines screaming against the void. They dove through the breach, weapons hot, tearing into the Xyloth interceptors that scrambled to seal the gap. Hale tracked their movements, relaying adjustments, shifting fire patterns. Every second mattered. Then the colossi moved. Massive alien warships, each the size of a city, began to pivot. Their hulls glowed with energy, weapons charging. Hale's breath caught. The dreadnoughts had expected this, but seeing it was different. The colossi were not just ships, they were monuments of conquest, designed to crush civilizations. Indomitable, target Colossus 3, Chen ordered. All dreadnoughts engage individually. Do not cluster. Hale rerouted data, feeding targeting solutions to the Indomitable's gunnery crews. Colossus 3 is shifting broadside. Recommend staggered fire to overload shields. Timing is critical. Understood. Chen's voice was calm, almost unnervingly so. Execute. The Indomitable's guns roared. Hale watched as the dreadnought's salvos hammered into the alien shield, each impact a ripple of light across the void. The Colossus returned fire, beams slicing through space, vaporizing 2 destroyers instantly. Hale flinched but kept his voice steady. Shields holding, adjust angle 10 degrees. Fire again. The dreadnoughts fought like predators, each one locking onto its chosen Colossus. The void became a storm of fire and steel. Hale's console screamed warnings, losses mounting, stabilizer strain climbing. He ignored the noise, focusing on the rhythm of battle. Humans didn't fight with perfection, they fought with adaptation, with ruthless improvisation, and it was working. Colossus 3 shields at 60%, Hale reported. Maintain pressure. Fighters are inside their hangar bays, cutting launch capacity. Chen's reply was a single word, good. The stabilizer timer ticked down, 4 minutes left. The Xyloth grid tried to reconfigure, nodes shifting to close the breach. Hale saw the pattern forming, the arrogance of symmetry reasserting itself. He keyed the destroyers. Secondary salvo now, target the Reformation nodes, don't let them seal us in. Missiles streaked again, hammering the grid's weak points. The aliens faltered, their perfect geometry unraveling under human chaos. Hale felt a surge of grim satisfaction. The Xyloth had built their empire on the assumption that no one would dare defy their order. Humanity was tearing that order apart. Colossus 3 shields collapsing, Hale shouted. Direct fire on hull, aim for reactor spine. The Indomitable's guns fired in sequence, each shot precise, brutal. The Colossus shuddered, its hull splitting under the assault. Hale saw the reactor flare, a bloom of light that consumed the alien warship. The void shook as the Colossus died, fragments scattering like ash. Cheers erupted across the CIC, but Hale cut them short. Focus, we're not done. Stabilizer at 3 minutes. Chen's voice was steel. All ships, disengage vectors, prepare for jump. The dreadnoughts pulled back, fighters retreating through the breach. The grid convulsed, alien ships scrambling to close the wound, but they were too slow. Humanity had carved its path, and now it was leaving. Hale watched the timer tick down. 2 minutes, 1 minute. The stabilizer core screamed in his ears, the deck vibrating with strain. Then the jump drive engaged, tearing the fleet out of the gravity well back into the cold safety of deep space. Silence fell. The Indomitable's CIC was bathed in dim light, consoles flickering as systems stabilized. Hale exhaled, only now realizing how tightly he'd been holding his breath. The fleet had survived, one Colossus destroyed, the grid breached, humanity had struck back. Chen's voice came over the channel, calm as ever. Mission complete, casualty reports incoming. Hale, your data saved lives today. Hale didn't answer immediately. He looked at the tactical display, at the shattered remains of the Colossus, at the gap torn in the alien grid. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was proof that the Xyloth could bleed. Finally he spoke. Next time we don't stop at 1. We need to write chapter 3 of 12 for episode 21. The previous context ends with the fleet having destroyed one Colossus and breached the grid, then jumping back to safety. Now chapter 3 must continue the story. The macro to micro scale, focus on grand clash between arrogant aliens and humans. No CLAKs, crisp military dialogue, pacing and tension high. 800-1000 words, output only story. We need to pick up after the jump. The fleet is back in deep space. Casual tie reports debriefing, possibly set up the next phase. The episode title, Through the Rift, humanity's Dreadnought Armada storms the alien siege ASF. So the Armada is storming the siege, but they just did a hit and run. Now they need to regroup. Perhaps the next step is to exploit the breach. Chapter 3 could be about the aftermath and planning the next assault. Keep it gripping. I'll write from Hale's perspective in the CIC. Show the cost of the mission, the calm professionalism, and the looming threat. End with a decision to push further. The CIC hummed with the low thrum of recharged systems. Hale didn't sit. He stood at the tactical display, hands flat on the cold metal rim, eyes on the after-action data. The Indomitable's bridge crew moved in practiced silence, no cheers, no relief, just the quiet rhythm of status checks and damage reports. Casualty summary, said Chen, voice clipped. 3 fighters lost, 1 destroyer, the Hammer of Dawn, suffered a reactor breach during the withdrawal. 87 crew, no survivors. Hale's jaw tightened. 87. Each name a raw hole in the fabric of the fleet. He'd known them not personally but as pieces of the whole. Their loss was a debt he intended to collect. The grid, he asked, breach remains open. Xyloth are scrambling repair ships, but we tore a gap wide enough for a capital ship to pass. They're shoring it up, but it'll take hours, maybe days. Good, Hale straightened. We buy them no time. Bring up the tactical plot. The display shifted. A 3-dimensional map of the Nixar system bloomed, the alien siege grid like a net of thorns around the human colonies. The breach was a jagged wound at the far edge, marked in red. Beyond it, the inner colonies, 3 inhabited worlds, 2 orbital stations, and a dry dock that held the remnants of the pre-war fleet. Intel from the captured Data Core, said Lieutenant Torres, her voice steady. We've identified the primary command node. It's a mobile station, consignation juggernaut orbiting the 4th planet. If we take it, the grid collapses. And if we don't, Chen added, they'll seal the breach and reinforce the inner perimeter. We lose the initiative. Hale looked at the room. Every face was worn, exhausted, but no one looked away. Then we hit the juggernaut, not a raid, a full assault. All dreadnoughts, all carriers. We push through the breach and we don't stop until that station is dust. Commander Reyes, the tactical officer, spoke up. Sir, the juggernaut is guarded by at least 2 more Colossus-class ships, possibly 3, and the inner grid is denser. We'll be fighting in a kill box, then we make the kill box ours. Hale turned to the main comm channel. All ships, this is Admiral Hale, we have a window. The enemy is reeling and they expect us to lick our wounds. Instead, we're going to drive deeper. We're going to take their command hub and shatter the siege. Prepare for jump in 60 minutes. That's all the time you have to repair, rearm, and rest. Move. The channel closed. Chen stepped beside him. You're betting everything on one charge. We don't have the resources for a siege, they do. The only way to win is to make them lose faster than we do. Chen nodded slowly. Then we'd better make it count. Hale looked at the timer. 59 minutes, he thought of the 87 and of the millions behind the grid. He thought of the Xyloth, arrogant, ancient, sure of their dominion. They had never faced a species that would burn its own ships before surrendering, that would jump into a star's gravity well just to carve a scar in their perfect formation. The fleet was ready, and so was he. Chapter 4, the Breachfire Line. The countdown ticked past 20 minutes when the Dreadnought Resolute slid into formation. Admiral Hale stood at the forward command deck, eyes locked on the tactical display. The Juggernaut station loomed beyond the rift corridor, its silhouette a monstrous lattice of alien alloy, bristling with weapons arrays that had already gutted 3 human task forces. Fleet status, Hale ordered. Commander Ray's voice was clipped, precise. 74 dreadnoughts combat ready, carriers at 80% launch capacity, escort frigates patched but operational, will have full strike wings in the fight. Chen leaned over the console. Xyloth Colossi are repositioning. 2 confirmed, 1 shadow contact, they're tightening the grid. Hale's jaw set. They think we'll hesitate, they're wrong. The comm crackled as Captain Duran of the Iron Vow came through. Admiral, my gunners are itching, permission to fire first salvo when we breach. Hale didn't hesitate. Granted, make it brutal. The rift corridor shimmered, a distortion of space-time that had swallowed fleets whole. Human ships had learned to ride its turbulence like predators in a storm. The dreadnoughts aligned, their hulls scarred but defiant, engines burning with steady resolve. Jump in 5, Rays announced. The deck vibrated as the fleet tore through the corridor. Space twisted, then snapped back. The Juggernaut station filled the viewport, its defense grid already spitting arcs of plasma. Contact, Chen barked. Colossus-class Vathra moving to intercept. Second Colossus breaking from the far flank. Hale's voice cut through the chaos. All dreadnoughts form the Breachfire Line. Carriers launch every wing. Frigates screen the flanks. We hold nothing back. The Breachfire Line was humanity's answer to alien arrogance, a wall of dreadnoughts advancing in lockstep, each ship's shields overlapping, each broadside timed to hammer the enemy in relentless rhythm. It was not elegant, it was not subtle, it was war distilled into geometry and fury. The Iron Vow fired first. Its spinal railgun spat a tungsten lance that ripped into the Vathra's forward shields. The alien Colossus reeled, its shimmering barrier fracturing under the kinetic storm. Line fire, Hale commanded. 74 dreadnoughts unleashed, plasma lances, rail slugs, missile swarms, an orchestra of destruction. The Juggernaut's grid lit up, beams stabbing back, but the Breachfire Line absorbed the punishment, shields flaring white-hot. Ray's tone was steady, almost calm. Enemy Colossus shields degrading, 30%. Chen's console flared red. Juggernaut station powering main cannon, 10 seconds to discharge. Hale's eyes narrowed. All ships brace. Counterfire on my mark. The Juggernaut's cannon erupted, a beam wide enough to swallow a cruiser. It slammed into the line, tearing through the Valor's edge, splitting the Dreadnought in half. The crew's last transmission was a single word, continue. Hale's voice was iron. Mark, return fire, the line answered. Coordinated broadsides converged on the Juggernaut's cannon array. Explosions rippled across its surface, alien plating buckling under the relentless assault. Station cannon offline, Rays confirmed. Chen exhaled sharply. We bought ourselves a window. Strike wings screamed past the line, hundreds of fighters weaving through plasma storms. Human pilots flew with terrifying precision, diving into the kill box the Xyloth had prepared and turning it into a slaughterhouse. Alien interceptors swarmed, but the carriers had unleashed everything: gunships, bombers, drones. The sky became a storm of contrails and fire. On the tactical display, the Vathra staggered. Its shields collapsed, hull rupturing under the dreadnought barrage. Hale's voice was cold, final. Finish it. The Resolute's railguns fired in sequence. The Colossus split apart, fragments spinning into the void. Rays reported, first Colossus destroyed, second engaging, third shadow contact closing fast. Chen's eyes flicked to Hale. They're trying to pin us between the station and 2 Colossi. Hale's reply was immediate. Then we break the station before the third arrives. All ships press forward, breach the hub. The Breachfire Line advanced, shields flickering, hulls scarred. Human crews worked with mechanical precision, voices steady despite the storm. The Juggernaut's defenses faltered under the relentless push. Admiral, Rays said, inner grid collapsing, we're inside their perimeter. Chen's tone carried a rare edge of awe. They didn't expect us to survive this deep. Hale's gaze locked on the Juggernaut's core. They thought humanity would bend, instead we break empires. The fleet surged forward, dreadnoughts carving a path through alien fire. The Juggernaut station shuddered, its command hub exposed. Hale's final order rang across every channel. All ships target the core, end this siege. The Breachfire Line unleashed its fury. The Juggernaut's heart erupted in a cascade of fire, shockwaves tearing through the grid. Alien transmissions fractured into static. Ray's voice was steady, almost reverent. Station destroyed, grid collapsing. Chen turned to Hale. We've done it. The siege is broken. Hale's eyes remained on the burning wreckage. No, this was only their fortress. Their empire still waits, and we're going to drag them down piece by piece. The fleet held formation, battered but unbroken, as the rift corridor shimmered with the promise of the next battle. Humanity had stormed the kill box and made it theirs. The war was far from over, but the message was clear. The Dreadnought Armada would not stop until the arrogant Xyloth learned fear. We need to write Chapter 5 of 12 for Episode 21. The previous context ended with the Juggernaut destroyed, Hale's declaration that the siege is broken but the Empire still waits. Chapter 5 should continue from there, likely focusing on aftermath, regrouping, and setting up the next target. Must be 801,000 words, crisp military dialogue, no cliches, high tension. Use macro to micro scale, grand clash versus human comm. Output only story text. The breach fair line hung in the void, a constellation of scarred steel and flickering shields. The Juggernaut's wreckage bled ionized gas across the rift corridor, debris fields already spinning into silent orbits. On the ASF Vindication's bridge, the only sounds were the low hum of recycled air and the click of tactical stations updating. Admiral Hale stood at the center of the holotank, his hands clasped behind his back. The display showed the fleet's status: 6 dreadnoughts at 70% combat efficiency or higher, 12 cruisers with hull breaches sealed, 23 escorts still operational. Losses were acceptable, 11 vessels total, none dreadnoughts. The Xyloth had lost their primary orbital fortress, 3 command carriers, and an estimated 4,000 combat drones. Captain Reyes finished his damage report. Ammunition reserves at 42%, fuel cells at 61%. The Hammer of Saul needs a full reactor recalibration before we can attempt another jump. Engineering says 6 hours minimum. We don't have 6 hours, Lieutenant Commander Chen said from the sensor station. The corridor's collapse is accelerating. The Juggernaut's destruction destabilized the anchor points. We have maybe 4 hours before the rift closes for good. Hale turned. Show me the far side. Chen keyed a sequence. The holotank shifted, displaying a star map built from recovered Xyloth navigation data and fragmented scout telemetry. Single system blinked at the edge, designated XR7 by Fleet Intelligence. A yellow star, 3 terrestrial planets, and a gas giant with a ring of orbital platforms, the Xyloth homeworld. Their empire's core is 6 light-years beyond that system, Chen said, but XR7 is the bottleneck. Control that system and we control the only stable rift route into their heartland. Reyes stepped closer. Admiral, the fleet is combat effective, but we're not ready for a sustained campaign. We need resupply, repairs, and we need to keep moving, Hale cut in. The Xyloth expected us to die here. They didn't expect us to shatter their fortress. Every hour we give them to regroup, they'll fortify that bottleneck until it's impassable. He looked at the scarred hull of the Vindication reflected in the viewport. We don't get to pause, we get to exploit. A comms officer raised a hand. Admiral, we're picking up a low-power signal from the debris field. It's Xyloth but modulated. Translation algorithms suggest it's a distress beacon, but the language structure is different, not military, possibly civilian. Silence settled over the bridge. Hale's jaw tightened. Can you localize the source? Yes, sir. Approximate coordinates 274 Mark 9 within the outer debris ring. Reyes turned to Hale. A colony transport, refugees. Could be a trap, or it could be survivors, Chen said quietly. The Juggernaut had crew quarters, non-combat personnel. Hale stared at the red dot pulsing on the holotank. The siege was broken, but the cost of humanity's survival had been measured in millions of dead. Every Xyloth ship, every station, every soldier, they were all part of the machine that had tried to exterminate Earth. Yet the beacon wasn't aggressive. It wasn't broadcasting threats. It was just pleading. Send a salvage drone to retrieve the source, Hale ordered. I want it on the Vindication's hangar deck within the hour, and have a marine security detail standing by. If it's a decoy, we'll know. If it's not, we'll decide what to do with them. Reyes nodded, but his expression was tight. Admiral, we're not equipped for prisoners. Our supplies are already stretched. I didn't say we were taking prisoners, Hale replied. I said we're retrieving the source. Information is a resource. Xyloth civilians might know something their military never would. He returned to the holotank, pulling up the fleet's projected jump path. In the meantime, all ships begin emergency repairs. Priority to weapon systems and rift drives. Chen, I want a jump solution for XR7 calculated and ready to execute in 3 hours. We'll leave the corridor as it collapses. 3 hours, sir, Chen confirmed. It's tight but doable. The bridge crew fell into motion, orders relayed, damage control teams dispatched, drone launch sequences initiated. Outside, the Vindication extended a salvage arm into the debris field, its sensors scanning for the faint signal. Hale stood alone at the viewport, watching the remains of the Juggernaut tumble into the dark. He thought of the message humanity had sent today: we do not break, we do not kneel, we advance. But he also thought of the beacon. Of the unknown Xyloth reaching out, not with weapons, but with a voice. The war was not over. The Empire still waited. And somewhere in that burning wreckage, a decision was about to be made that would define whether humanity became something more than just another predator in the void. The salvage arm of the Vindication groaned as it latched onto a twisted section of the Juggernaut's hull. On the bridge, the silence was thick enough to choke on. Hale watched the feed from the salvage drone, its camera sweeping over scorched alloy and ruptured conduits. The beacon's signal pulsed faintly, a rhythmic whisper in the static. Source located, the AI announced. Compartment 7 Alpha, life support minimal, 1 biological signature. Reyes stepped closer to Hale, voice low. 1, that's not a civilian evacuation. That's a trap or a survivor, Hale said, not looking away from the screen. We don't get to choose which one it is until we open the door. The drone cut through the hull with a plasma torch, sparks cascading into the void. The camera pushed through the breach, revealing a cramped chamber. Emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows across scattered data slates, and a single figure slumped against the far wall. Humanoid, Xyloth, armor cracked, breathing labored. He's unarmed, Lieutenant Park noted from her station. No weapons in the compartment, no secondary signatures. Could still be a dead man's switch, Chen muttered. Hale keyed the comm. Commander Reyes, take a 4-man team, secure that compartment. I want him alive and I want him talking. Reyes didn't hesitate. He was already moving toward the airlock helmet ceiling. Aye, sir, extraction in 10. The minutes stretched. Hale's fingers drummed against the armrest. The fleet hung in the black, wounded but watchful. Every second they stayed was a second the Xyloth could rally, could send reinforcements through another corridor. But the beacon, this unknown signal, was a thread he couldn't afford to cut. Boarding team inside, Reyes reported, his voice crisp. Target is conscious, he's not resisting. On the feed, the Xyloth raised his hands slowly. His eyes, large, dark, ringed with exhaustion, fixed on Reyes' rifle. He spoke, and the translator rendered the words with a flat, metallic tone. You came, I knew you would. Reyes crouched, keeping the weapon trained. You sent the beacon. Why? The Xyloth coughed, a spatter of dark fluid on his chin. Because the Empire is lying to its own people. The war you fight's not for survival, it's for control. Hale leaned forward. Explain. The alien's gaze shifted, searching for the voice. The Juggernaut was not here to destroy your fleet. It was here to test you, to see if your species could be broken. The Empire knows your rift drives are unstable. They've been mapping your emergence points for cycles. They are hurting you. A chill ran through the bridge. Chen's hand stopped over the console. Hurting us where? Hale asked. To the Nexus, the Xyloth said. A system at the core of their territory. They want to draw your entire fleet there, and when you arrive, they will collapse the rift around you, not kill you, trap you permanently. Reyes stood, his voice hard. And why should we believe you? The alien met his gaze. Because I helped design the trap. And I am the only one who knows how to break it. Hale stared at the screen. The war had just changed. The enemy was not just powerful, they were patient. And this broken Xyloth sitting in the rubble of his own vessel was either the key to victory or the bait for the final snare. He made his choice. Secure him, medical bay, full watch. He turned to Chen. Cancel the jump, we're not running anymore. The bridge stirred. Reyes' voice came through, quiet. Admiral, if he's lying, then we'll know, Hale said. And if he's not, we just found our way into the heart of the Empire. The bridge hummed with the low thrum of the Dreadnought's working systems, the sharp tang of burnt insulation from the earlier boarding skirmish still clinging to the air. Corporal Jax's knuckles were white around his mag rifle as he escorted the Xyloth out, the aliens oozing carapace leaving dark smears on the deck plating with every step. Hale watched the security feed for 3 full seconds before turning back to his tactical officer. Tell me you found the signature he mentioned, Chen. Chen's fingers flew across her console, pulling up a layered plot of every rift emergence point the fleet had used in the last 6 months. Not just found it, Admiral. Every single point has a 0.02% subspace ping we wrote off as Rift Blade. It's a homing beacon, matching the emitter specs he described. Cross-referenced with the Juggernaut's hull scans, there's a matching array bolted to its underside. They've been tagging us since we broke out of the Sol system. Intelligence Officer Voss leaned over Chen's shoulder, her voice sharp. Fleet Command's initial assessments were wrong. The Juggernaut wasn't here to destroy us. It was here to confirm the beacons were working, to make sure we'd take the bait and run for the Nexus. Hale activated the fleet-wide comms, his voice cool, no trace of the unease coiling in his gut. All captains, this is Admiral Hale. Cancel emergency jump protocols. Battle stations, yellow alert. New course set for the Tarani system, first suspected Nexus anchor site. Jump window 400 ship time, acknowledge. The first reply came from Captain Kale of the Iron Resolve, his tone tight with skepticism. Admiral, Tarani's is 4 uncharted jumps out, 72 hours of exposure to Xyloth patrols. If the Juggernaut returns, we don't have the firepower to take it. This is a suicide run. We're not fighting the Juggernaut, Hale said, cutting him off. We're disabling the anchors before the Empire can collapse the rift. Hold position, prep your point defense batteries. That's an order. He cut the comms and turned to Commander Reyes, who was already heading for the lift. I want a security detail posted outside the Xyloth's med bay cell 24/7. No one gets within 5 meters without my authorization. The med bay was cold, the hum of the bioscanners matching the thud of Hale's boots on the polished floor. Lieutenant Sorrel, the xenomedic, had her back to the door, gloved hand hovering over the Xyloth's carapace as she ran a scan. A small silver Epsilon Eridani colony insignia peeked out from under her uniform collar. The Xyloth's eye stalks twitched, focusing on the pendant. "You're from Eridani," he rumbled, his translator crackling with static. Sorrel flinched, her hand flying to the insignia. "My family was there when your empire glassed the outer colonies." "Why should I help you?" The Xyloth didn't blink. "I designed the emitter that glassed it, spent 3 cycles trying to undo what I helped build. Your choice whether you believe me, but I'm the only one who knows where the anchors are buried." Hale stepped forward, Reyes at his shoulder, sidearm holstered, but his hand resting light on the grip. "You said you could break the trap." The Xyloth lifted a clawed hand, the stasis cuffs clinking. "The Triad anchors. 1 in Tyrannis, 1 in the Galactic Nebula, 1 in the Proxima Rift. Disable all 3, the collapse field won't activate. But the Xyloth 3rd Patrol is en route to Tyrannis to reinforce the anchor crew. They'll be there 12 hours before you can make the jump." Chen's voice crackled over the bridge comms, sharp with alarm. "Admiral, long-range sensors, 12 Xyloth cruisers, emerge 2.1 light hours out, bearing 45. Running silent, drive signatures match 3rd Patrol." Reyes' jaw tightened. "Our port drive is still damaged from the Juggernaut's first salvo. We can't outrun them, not without sacrificing our escort screen. If we engage, we lose 3 hours minimum. We won't make Tyrannis in time to stop the anchor deployment." The Xyloth's mandibles clicked, a soft, clicking sound that might have been amusement. "I can access their comms from your cyber warfare suite. Them falsified Imperial orders. Redirect to the Galactic Nebula to hunt a human raider party. They'll buy it. You'll have 6 hours, enough to make the jump, disable the anchor, be gone before they realize the ruse." Hale stared at him for 3 full seconds, the weight of 12,000 crew lives and the fate of the entire human fleet pressing on his shoulders. "One lie, one trick, and I vent your airlock personally. No trial, no appeal." "Fair," the Xyloth said. "Now get me to your cyber deck. The patrol will start their turn in 90 seconds if we don't act now." 2 hours later, the tactical plot lit up with the 12 Xyloth cruisers altering course, their bow drives flaring as they turned toward the Galactic Nebula. Hale watched the course plot lock into the Tyrannis jump coordinates, the bridge crew moving with quiet, efficient precision. Outside the viewport, the rest of the human Dreadnought Armada hung in the dark, their running lights a thin line of defiance against the void. The alien empire thought they were herding prey into a pen. They were about to find out humans had a habit of turning traps into hunting grounds. The bridge hummed at a frequency only veteran crews could tune out, low thrum of the FTL core, the faint whine of battle-damaged sensor arrays, the sharp, acrid smell of burnt insulation clinging to recycled air. Hale's cracked ceramic mug sat in the cup holder of his command console, cold coffee sloshing slightly every time the ship's residual damage compensation thrusters fired to correct their drift. The tactical plot glowed soft blue, the 12 Xyloth cruisers now plotted as a solid block 1.2 million clicks off their port bow, their course locked for the Galactic Nebula, exactly where the falsified Imperial order had directed them. "Admiral, Xyloth command net is lit up," comms officer Lieutenant Reyes said, her fingers flying across her console, no trace of the tremor he'd seen in them when she'd checked the casualty report for her younger brother on the damaged escort Hornet an hour prior. "They're dispatching 3 additional hunter-killer squadrons to the Galactic coordinates to hunt the human raider cell. Ruse is holding." Before Hale could respond, Sensor Chief Petty Officer Kowalski cut in, his voice tighter than the comms channel allowed. "Contact, unregistered Xyloth scout craft, 40,000 clicks off our port bow, drifted off the main patrol 22 minutes ago. Active sensor sweep pinged us once, then went dark. It's not following the rest of the patrol, it's vectoring for Tyrannis." The Xyloth cyber warfare specialist Vrax leaned over his station, his chitin scuffed white from shrapnel during the Juggernaut's opening salvo, mandibles clicking fast enough to be audible over the bridge's ambient noise. "That's a command verification scout. They deploy 1 per redirected patrol for high-priority target zones. It carries a hardwired burst transmitter that will ping patrol command with its full sensor log the second it confirms the raider sighting is fabricated. If that ping goes out, the entire patrol reverses course in 22 minutes. Will be 1.8 million clicks from Tyrannis when they do. We don't make the jump window to disable the anchor. Time to burst transmission, Hale asked, his voice level, no trace of the cold dread coiling in his gut. 11 minutes. Hale pulled up the escort screen's disposition. The USS Raptor, a damaged corvette with 30 surviving crew, most with combat injuries, was the only craft within intercept range with functional weapons and stealth capability. Its FTL drive was shot, its shields offline, but it still carried a single Mark IV nuclear torpedo and could run cold enough to avoid passive sensor detection if it killed all non-essential power. "Patch me through to Raptor," he ordered. Lieutenant Mara Voss's voice came through the comms, steady, the faint wail of damage alarms filtering in from her end. "Admiral, I saw the contact plot. We'll take the shot." "Voss, your crew, half of them are already on the casualty list, Admiral. The rest signed up to die for the fleet, not sit on their thumbs while that anchor deploys. We've got 9 minutes to intercept if we burn hard now. We'll run dark, no drive flare, no active sensors. The scout won't pick us up till we're in torpedo range." Hale stared at the Raptor's signature on the tactical plot, a tiny blip 12,000 clicks off the scout's projected path. He thought of the 12,000 crew on his own dreadnought, the 40,000 more on the rest of the Armada, the 7 billion people on Tyrannis who would be enslaved or killed if the anchor deployed. "Make the shot, Lieutenant. Fleet owes you and your crew. Just get that anchor disabled, sir. Raptor out." The bridge went quiet for 4 minutes, the only sound the low thrum of the core and the soft clicking of Vrax's mandibles as he monitored the scout's sensor output. Then the tactical plot flared. A tiny, unregistered weapons signature, no drive flare, streaked from the Raptor's position straight into the Xyloth scout. The scout's hull glowed bright orange for half a second before it blew apart, a silent bloom of debris scattering into the void. A second later, Voss's voice came through, staticky faint. "Glancing hit to our engineering bay. FTL's gone, life support failing in 18 minutes. Good luck with the anchor." Her signature faded from the plot a moment later. Vrax chittered, a sharp, relieved sound. "Scout's comms array is destroyed. No burst transmission. Patrol stays on course for Kalik. We have 3 hours 42 minutes until we drop out of FTL at Tyrannis. Anchor deployment is scheduled for 4 hours 17 minutes from now. We have 35 minutes to disable it once we're in system." Hale stared at the fading Raptor signature, a small cross marking its final position, then pulled up the Tyrannis system schematic. The anchor platform orbited the gas giant's third moon, bristling with plasma batteries and interceptor drones, designed to hold the system hostage for the Xyloth Empire's expansion fleet. "Helm set FTL drop coordinates 50,000 clicks from the anchor platform. Approach vector masked by the gas giant's radiation belt," he ordered, tapping his console to pull up the boarding party rosters. "Tactical, load all anti-ship missiles, prep 2 squads for EVA to the anchor's outer airlocks. We're not leaving that thing active." Outside the viewport, the rest of the human Dreadnought Armada hung in the dark, their running lights a thin, unbroken line of defiance against the void. The Xyloth Empire thought they were herding prey into a pen. They were about to find out humans had a habit of turning traps into hunting grounds. Thinking 1. Annalise the Request, Target, Chapter 9 of 12 for Episode 21 of Through the R-IFT, Humanity. SD Dreadnought Armada St. Orms the Alien Sci-Fi ASF. Style, military sci-fi, gripping high stakes. Rules, 1. Macro to micro scale, grand clash versus. Specific action, 2. No CL-ICE acutes, crisp military dialogue, 3. Pacing and tension, 800-100 words. 4. Output only the story text. Context given, VSR Raptor was hit, FTL gone, life support failing in 18 minutes. VRAX alien ally confirms scouts, comms destroyed, patrol stays course. 3H42M until FTL drop at T. Aranis. Anchor deployment in 4H17M. 35 minutes to disable it. Hale staring at R apt or signature. Anchor platform around gas giant's third moon. Hale orders FTL drop 50, 0K licks from anchor, masked by radiation belt. Load anti-SHIP missiles, prep EVA scads, Dreadnought Armada outside, X-Iloth Empire trap. My role, write the next chapter, Chapter 9, based on this exact context. The previous chapter ended with Hale giving orders and the Armada setting up. Chapter 9 needs to execute this plan. The drop into T. Aranis, the engagement with the anchor platform, the boarding action, the clock ticking, the sacrifice of Vios. The 35-minute window, 2. Determine the narrative arc for Chapter 9, opening the drop out of FTL, the tension of the countdown, 3H42M is up, they are in system, the immediate tactical situation. The engagement, the Armada Vs, the anchor platform, the X-Iloth reaction, the H-Unting ground reveal, the human ships executing a complex maneuver, the race against time, 35 minutes to disable the anchor. The boarding party, the technical challenge, how to disable it without blowing it up, or blowing it up is the goal. Disable implies capture destruction that prevents the signal/activation. The personal cost, Hale's thoughts on Vios, the ticking clock of her life support, the pressure of command, the sacrifice of the R-apt, or the twist/setback. It can be too easy. The anchor has a defense the scouts didn't see. The boarding party gets pinned. The ex-Iloth fleet is coming. CLIM acts of Chapter 9. The boarding party reaches the core. They plant charges, hack the system. The anchor starts its deployment sequence. The 4H-17M deadline is the activation of the anchor, not just the start. They have 35 mins to stop it after they drop out of FTL, which is 3H-42M after the previous scene. So they have exactly 35 minutes from the moment they drop out of FTL to stop the anchor from deploying. Ending, the charges are set. The human fleet starts to withdraw. The anchor explodes. But the ex-Iloth patrol that V-Rax said was heading to K-Ailike, where is it, or a new threat emerges? The chapter ends on a cliff. H. Anger Revial 3. Derafting the chapter, iterative process. Opening lines, macro to a micro. The T-Aaron system snapped into existence around them. A smear of orange and violet from the gas giant, S-Row-Eiling atmosphere bleeding across the black. The transition from FTL to Real's pace was always a gut punch, a moment of blindness where the universe decided whether you live or die. Hale's hands were white. K-N-Uck led on the armrest S of his command chair. T-Act Eichel display, the plot lit up. The anchor platform was exactly where the intelligence said it would be, a brutal ist structure of dark alloy and glowing energy conduits, wrapped around the third moon like a parasitic was P-nest. Plasma batteries, interceptor drone bays, a command spire at its center. It was a fortress. All ships, this is Fleet Command, execute maneuver T-Ango and Anur, Dreadnought S form then Vil, destroy Urs the Hammer. We have 35 minutes to turn that thing into scrap before the ex-Iloth realize their trap has teeth. Hale's voice was flat, calm, the voice of a man who had already accepted the cost. The engagement begins. The Arm Ada came out of the radiation belt like wolves from a fog. The V-Alk-Y led the charge, its main battery cycling. The ex-Iloth anchor platform reacted with mechanical precision, its plasma batteries tracking interceptor drones SB-illing from their bays like angry hornets. Missile batteries fire at will, target their drone racks. I want their sky clear before the boarding SH at less launch, Hale ordered. The space between the human fleet and the anchor platform became a lattice of fire and counter-fire. Point defense cannons on the V-Alk-Y sent itched a web of tungsten death, shredding the first wave of ex-Iloth drones. The destroyers, smaller and faster, de-arted in, launching their own salvos before peeling away. The boarding action, boarding parties launch, 4SH at less, sleek and black, detached from the V-Alk-Y belly, burning hard for the anchor outer air L-Ox. He'll watch their telemetry on a secondary screen. Inside, he knew, were the best of the V-Alk-Y Marine detachment. Hard men and women who had signed up to stare into the alien ob-is and spit in its face. The clock is T-icking. A chronometer sat in the corner of Hale's vision. 34 minutes left, then 33. Vios' last transmission echoed in his skull, life support failing in 18 minutes. That was 15 minutes ago. She was dead or dying. He couldn't think about that now. The mission was the only thing that mattered. The anchor had to die. The twist/setback. The lead shuttle took a hit from a hidden plasma turret. It spiraled, crashing into the anchor's hull, but the magnetic gra PNLs held. The Marines inside were shaken but alive. They blew the outer hatch and stormed Ed inside. Command, this is boarding lead. We ray in. The interior is. It's not just a platform, it's a hive. Ex-Iloth warriors everywhere. They were waiting for an assault. We ray pinned down at Junction Alpha 7. Need fire support. Hale's jaw tightened. T-Act Eichel, can we give them a path? Negative, sir. The structure is too dense. Any bombardment will collapse the section on our people. Then we give them time. Helm, bring us broadside to the platform. All batteries, sustained fire on the upper hemisphere. Suppress their guns so the Marines can move. The climax, the V-Alk-Y shudder Ed under the weight of its own fire. The anchor's shields flick-aired, overload Ed. The upper hemisphere of the platform became a hell of glowing CR-8ers and venting atmosphere. Inside, the Marines pushed forward. They fought through corridors designed for ex-Iloth physiology, T-all wide, with handholds on the ceiling. The air sent ank of ozone and alien musk. They reached the core. Command, we ray at the central reactor node, planting charges. Make it fast, Marine. The anchor is starting its deployment sequence. We have 12 minutes before it locks onto the next phase gate. The extraction and the price, the charges were set. The Marines fought their way back to the SH at less, dragging their wounded. The anchor platform was dying, its core overloading. The V-Alk-Y and the fleet began to pull back, angling for the FTL jump point. All ships, jump coordinates locked. We leave in 60 seconds. The anchor platform dead unaided. A silent, blinding flower of light that consumed the third moon and sterilized the orbit. The shock wave hit the V-Alquire-S shields, a brief, violent shudder. Anchor is gone, sir. The T-air in his system is clear. Hale let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. He looked at the plot, at the empty space where the anchor had been, at the fading icon of Vios SR Aptor. Good, he said quietly. But the ex-Il-Oth know we ray here now. The patrol heading for K-Ike, they will have felt this. Helm set course for the rally point. We have a war to win, and we just fired the first shot. Wait, the prompt says Chapter 9 of 12 for Episode 21. Let me check the exact details and constraints. Context check. VSR Aptor hit. FTL gone. Life support 18 mins. This sets the emotional stakes. VRAX confirms Scout Commerce destroyed. Patrol stays course for K-Ike. 3H42M until FTL drop at T-Aaron is. Anchor deployment scheduled for 4H17M from now. 35 minutes to disable it once in system. Hale orders FTL drop 50. 0K licks from anchor, masked by radiation belt. Load anti-S-hip missiles, prep 2 scads for EVA. Arm Ada is hanging in the dark, ex-Il-Oth trap. Let's structure Chapter 9 strictly from the moment the fleet arrives in T-Aaron is. Chapter 9, the anchors fall. The T-Aaron is system materialized with a jar ring L-Urch, the gas giant's immense orange bulk filling the forward viewport. Hale's eyes went immediately to the tactical plot, the countdown clock already ticking in the corner of his vision. 34 minutes, 58 seconds. The anchor platform was a cold, geometric star against the moon's gray face, exactly where the briefing said it would be, a fortress built to hold a system hostage. All stations, weapons free. Execute Tiango and Anur, Hale ordered, his voice cutting through the hum of the bridge. The arm Ada didn't hesitate. The Dreadnought S, the V-Alquire at their head, emerged from the gas giant's radiation belt like sharks aching shallow water. The ex-Il-Oth platform reacted instantly, its surface lighting up with the angry red glow of charging plasma batteries. The first salvo was a mutual SH-ing exchange. The V-Alquire shuddered as a plasma bolt glanced off her forward shields, the energy dissipation FLRing across the hull. On the plot, a destroyer wasn't so lucky. Its shields collapsed, and a second bolt carved into its engine section. It went dark, T-umbling out of formation. Bo Arding SH less away, Tact Eichel reported. 4 Blunt and O's craft dropped from the V-Alquire-S launch bays, burning hard for the anchor's primary airlock. Inside, 2 scads of Marines were straw-peeped in, their helmets reflecting the frantic strobe of the battle outside. They had 30 minutes to get in, plant the charges, and get out. Hale watched the SH at less telemetry, a knot of cold iron in his gut. VSR Aptor was a fading echo in his mind. Life support failing in 18 minutes. That was over 20 minutes ago. She was a ghost now, a sacrifice that bought them this window. He couldn't let it be for nothing. The drones are breaking through the outer screen, Helm reported. We are going to have company. Interceptors engage, keep them off the SH less. The battle became a chaotic ballet. Human fighters twisted through the ex-Il-Oth drone SW arms, rail guns and lasers flashing. The anchor's plasma batteries were relentless, hammering the Dreadnought line. The V-Alquire took another hit, a glancing blow to the port armor belt. The deck plates vibrated under Hale's feet. Bo Arding lead to V-Alquire. We ray on the hull, BL owing the hatch. The feed from the Marine's helmet cam crack led to life, smoke and sparks. The interior of the anchor was a cathedral of alien architecture, all vault-ed ceilings and organic-looking conduits, and it was crawling with ex-Il-Oth, tall CH-Itano's forms, their weapon arms glowing with energy. Contact, the firefight was brutal, close quarters. The Marines moved with disciplined precision, but the ex-Il-Oth were defending their nest with a ferocity that bordered on fanatic-ism. They were taking casualties. Command, this is lead. We ray pinned at the reactor junction. We can see the core, but we can get to it without covering fire. The ex-Il-Oth are dug in hard. Hale slammed his fist on the armrest. Tact Eichel, can we target the junction from here without collapsing the section on our people? Negative, sir. The structural integrity is tied into the core shielding. If we hit it, the whole thing goes up with our people inside. Then we give them a distraction. Helm, bring us about. Full broadside on the anchor's command spire. I want their command and control blind. Marines, you have 90 seconds to move. We are going to make a lot of noise. The V-Alquire returned, presenting its full broadside to the anchor. The main batteries, the secondary cannons, the missile tubes, everything that could bear, fired. The anchor's shield screamed in protest, flick-aired, and collapsed. The upper spire of the platform vanished in a series of violent explosions. Inside, the sudden darkness and the tremor of the impacts were the signal the Marines needed. They surged forward, cutting down the disoriented ex-Il-Oth guards. They reached the reactor core, a pool-sing sphere of captured stellar energy. CH-ARG-E's set 10 minutes on the timer. Pull back, all scads, extract. The Marines fought a desperate rear-guard action back to the SH less. The anchor was dying, its internal systems failing, atmosphere venting into space. The SH Utles detached, burning hard for the fleet. All ships jump coordinates locked, we leave in 60 seconds. The V-Alk re-angled away from the moon, its engines SB-ing up for the FTL jump. Behind them, the anchor platform dead-on aided. The blast was a silent, expanding ring of white fire that swallowed the moon and SCR'd the orbit clean. The shock wave washed over the fleet, a final, violent handshake from a defeated fortress. The chronometer hit 0, 35 minutes exactly. Anchor is destroyed, Tact Eichel said, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. T. Aaron's system is clear. Hale leaned back in his chair, the tension slowly draining from his shoulders. He looked at the empty space where the anchor had been. He looked at the icon of VOSR apt, or still a dark cross on the edge of the system map. Hell M set course for the rally point. The ex-Il-Oth patrol heading for KAL Ike just got a very loud wake-up call. We have a war to win, and we just made it personal. Let's refine this. The prompt asks for a specific countdown. The anchor deployment is scheduled for 4H17M from the start of the previous chapter. They have 3H42M until FTL drop, so they have 35 minutes to disable it once they drop out. Words 800-100-0. Let's check the text. VRAC CH iter ed, a sharp, relieved sound. SC out SCOM S array is destroyed, no burst transmission. Patrol stays course for KAL Ike. We have 3 hours 42 minutes until we drop out of FTL at T. Aaron is. Anchor deployment is scheduled for 4 hours 17 minutes from now. We have 35 minutes to disable it once we ray-in system. So the clock is ticking. The anchor deploy OIS in 4H17M. They drop out of FTL in 3H42M. They have 35 minutes to stop it. Let's write the chapter strictly adhering to this. Chapter 9, the 35M in Ute War. The T. Aaron is system slammed into Ray Al's pace with the violent dislocation of a universe folding itself back together. The gas giant S immense Ak ray in violet bands filled the viewport, a swirling god of storm and pressure. Hale didn't blink. His eyes were locked on the tactical plot where the anchor platform hung in a precise, lethal orbit around the third moon, a dark star of alien engineering. The countdown in the corner of his vision read 34:59. All ships, confirm status, we are live, execute T. Ango and Anur. The human Armada emerged from the radiation belt as a single, coordinated fist. The V-Alk led, its massive bulk a shadow against the gas giant's glare. The destroyers F and out, their smaller profiles making them harder targets. The ex-Il-Oth anchor reacted with mechanical disdain. Its surface lit up, plasma batteries tracking interceptor drones spee-wing from their launch racks like a cloud of angry hornets. The ex-Il-Oth had built this fortress to be impregnable. They had not built it to face a human Dreadnought Armada that had nothing left to lose. T-Act Eichel priority targets are the drone racks and the upper plasma batteries. I want a hole punched in their defenses for the boarding parties. The V-Alk-S main battery spoke. A trio of heavy plasma bolts crossed the void, SLMing into the anchor's shields. The energy bloom was blinding, a second sun in the moon's orbit. The shields held, but they flick-aired. The destroyers added their fire, a storm of missiles and kinetic rounds hammering the same section. SH yields on the anchor are down to 60%, Tact Eichel reported. Dr. 1 racks are taking casualties, but they race still launching. Bo Arding SH at less away. 4 SH at less, blunt and utilitarian, dropped from the V-Alk-S belly. They didn't maneuver. They burned straight for the anchor's primary airlock, trusting the fleet's fire to keep the path clear. Inside, 2 scads of Marines sat in the dark, their weapons charged, their breath the only sound. They had 33 minutes to get in, plant the charges, and get out. Hale watched their telemetry on a secondary screen. Vios' face flick-aired in his memory. Life support failing in 18 minutes. That was over 22 minutes ago. The R-Aptor was a tomb now, drifting in the dark. Her sacrifice had bought them this exact moment. He couldn't waste it. The drone swarm is getting dense, Helm warned. They race starting to probe the destroyer screen. Interceptors engage, keep them busy. Dreadnought S tighten the formation. We absorb the fire. The space between the fleet and the anchor became a lattice of death. Railgun rounds, plasma bolts, missile trails, and the weaving paths of fighters and drones. A destroyer, the Dauntless, took a direct hit from a heavy plasma battery. Its shields collapsed, and the bolt carved into its hull. It went dark, T-umbling out of the line. Bo Arding lead to V-Alk-Ri. We are on the hull. Magnetic Gra PNLs locked, Bree aching the hatch. The feed from the Marine's helmet cam crack led. The outer hatch blew inward, revealing the alien interior. It was a cathedral of CH Itin and dark metal, designed for creatures that walked on walls and ceilings, and it was full of ex-Il-Oth. Contact. Multiple contacts, the firefight was immediate and savage. The Marines moved with brutal efficiency, but the ex-Il-Oth were defending their heart. They fought with a mindless, CH-ittering fury. The Marines took casualties. A squad leader went down, his armor punctured by an energy bolt. Command, this is lead. We ray at the reactor junction, but we ray pinned. They have the high ground. We can see the core, but we can get to it without suppressing fire. We need a distraction. Hale's jaw tightened. T-Act Eichel, can we hit the junction without collapsing the section? Negative, sir. The core shielding is tied into the structural lattice. Any direct fire will cause a cascade failure. The whole platform goes up with our people inside. Then we give them a different kind of noise. Helm, bring us broadside to the anchor. All batteries, target the command spire. I want their command and control blind. Marines, you have 90 seconds. Move. The V-Alquai returned, its entire broadside presenting to the anchor. The order was given. Every gun that could bear fired. The anchor shield screamed, flick-aired, and died. The upper spire of the platform vanished in a series of perfectly placed explosions. The ex-Iloth inside were deaf-end, blind, disoriented. The Marines surged forward. They cut through the dazed ex-Iloth guards, reached the reactor core, a pool-sing sphere of captured stellar energy, the heart of the fortress. CHRGs set 9 minutes on the timer. Extract all scads back to the SH at less. The Marines fought a desperate retreat, dragging their wounded. The anchor was dying around them, atmosphere venting, fires spreading. They piled into the SH at less, debt aching from the hull, burning hard for the fleet. All ships, jump coordinates locked. We leave in 60 seconds. The V-Alquai re-angled away from the moon, its FTL drives SB-ing. Behind them, the anchor platform dead unaided. A silent, expanding ring of white fire swallowed the moon, SCRing the orbit clean. The shock wave hit the fleet, a brief, violent shudder. The chronometer hit 0, 35 minutes exactly. Anchor is destroyed, Tactical said. T-Aaron, his system is clear. Hale let out a breath. He looked at the empty space where the anchor had been, at the fading icon of Vios R apt, or at the T-umbling wreck of the Untless. Hell M set course for the rally point. The ex-Iloth patrol heading for K-Ale Ike just heard that. We have a war to win, and we just fired the first shot. Secure the fleet. We are not done yet. Let's review the word count. The text is around 850 words. Let's expand a little to get closer to 100, adding more detail to the boarding action and the emotional weight of Vios' sacrifice. Add more sensory details, the smell of ozone, the taste of recycled air, the vibration of the ship. Let's refine the boarding action to make it more visceral. The feed from the Marine's helmet cam crack led to life, smoke and sparks. The interior of the anchor was a cathedral of alien architecture, all vault-ed ceilings and organic-looking conduits. The air, pip-ed through the comm-s, smelled of ozone and alien musk, a thick CL-ing scent, and it was crawling with ex-Iloth. Tall CH-Itin-O's forms, their weapon arms glowing with energy, their mandibles clicking in a rhythmic, predatory pattern. Let's add a moment for Hale regarding Vios. He pulled up the comm-s log, the last burst from the R-Aptor. GL Ansing hit to our engineering bay, FTL gone, life support failing in 18 minutes, good luck with the anchor. He closed the log, he didn't have time to mourn, the living needed him, the dead were already gone. Let's check the strict adherence to the prompt's context. Vios' voice came through, stat icky faint. GL Ansing hit to our engineering bay, FTL gone, life support failing in 18 minutes. Good luck with the anchor, her signature faded from the plot a moment later, used in Hale's thoughts. VRAC CH it or ed, we have 3 hours 42 minutes until we drop out of FTL at T. Aaron is. Anchor deployment is scheduled for 4 hours 17 minutes from now. We have 35 minutes to disable it once we ray in system. The 35-minute countdown is the central mechanic of the chapter. HAL stared at the fading R apt or signature, pulled up the T. Aaron is system schematic. Done. Hell M, set FTL drop coordinates 50, 0K licks from the anchor platform, approach vector masked by the gas giant, S radiation belt. Prep 2 scads for EVA to the anchor, S outer air LOX. We ray not leaving that thing active. The plan is executed exactly. Outside the viewport, the rest of the human Dreadnought Armada hung in the dark, their running lights a thin, unbroken line of defiance against the void. The ex-Iloth Empire thought they were herding prey into a pen. They were about to find out humans had a habit of turning traps into hunting grounds. This is the tone of the chapter. The chapter is called The 35-Minute War. Let's write the final draft. Focus on tight pacing, military jargon, high stakes, and the macro to micro scale. Chapter 9, The 35-Minute War. The T. Aaron is system snapped into existence with the jar ring dislocation of a universe folding itself back together. The gas giant, S immense ray and violet bands filled the forward viewport, a swirling god of storm and pressure. Hale's eyes went immediately to the tactical plot, where the anchor platform hung in a precise, lethal orbit around the third moon. A dark star of CH-Itin and alloy bristling with plasma batteries and interceptor drones. The countdown in the corner of his vision read 34:59. All ships, confirm status, weapons free. Execute Tiango and Anur. The human Armada emerged from the gas giant's radiation belt as a single, coordinated fist. The V-Alquire led, its massive bulk a shadow against the glare. The destroyers FN out, their smaller profiles harder for the X-Iloth targeting systems to lock. The anchor reacted with mechanical disdain. Its surface lit up with the angry red glow of charging plasma batteries. Interceptor drones spilled from their launch racks like a cloud of angry hornets. The X-Iloth had built this fortress to hold a system hostage, to be impregnable. They had not built it to face a human Dreadnought Armada that had nothing left to lose. Tactical priority targets are the drone racks and the upper hemisphere batteries. I want a hole punched in their defenses for the boarding parties. The V-Alquire's main battery spoke. A trio of heavy plasma bolts crossed the void, SLMing into the anchor's shields. The energy bloom was blinding, a second sun in the moon's orbit. The shields held, but they flick-aired. The destroyers added their fire, a storm of missiles and kinetic rounds hammering the same section. SH yields on the anchor are down to 60%, Tactical reported. Dr. 1 racks are taking casualties, but they ray still launching. We have a lot of company inbound, boarding SH less away. 4 blunt and O's craft dropped from the V-Alquire's belly. They didn't TJ ink or weave. They burned a straight, desperate line for the anchor's primary airlock, trusting the fleet's fire to keep the path clear. Inside, 2 scads of Marines sat in the dark, their weapons charged, their breath the only sound. They had 33 minutes to get in, plant the charges, and get out. Hale watched their telemetry on a secondary screen. He pulled up the comms log, the last burst from the Raptor. GL ansing hit to our engineering bay. FTL's gone, life support failing in 18 minutes. Good luck with the anchor, he closed the log. He didn't have time to mourn, the living needed him. The drone swarm is getting dense, Helm warned. They race starting to probe the destroyer screen. Interceptors engage, keep them busy. Dreadnought tighten the formation, we absorb the fire. The space between the fleet and the anchor became a lattice of death. Rail gun rounds, plasma bolts, missile trails, and the weaving paths of fighters and drones. A destroyer, the Dauntless, took a direct hit from a heavy plasma battery. Its shields collapsed, and the bolt carved into its hull. It went dark, tumbling out of the line, its crew fighting a losing battle against fire and vacuum. Boarding lead to V-Alquire. We are on the hull, magnetic gra PNLs locked, Bree aching the hatch. The feed from the Marine's helmet cam crack led to life. The outer hatch blew inward, revealing the alien interior. It was a cathedral of itin and dark metal, designed for creatures that walked on walls and ceilings. The air pip-ed through the comms smelled of ozone and alien musk, and it was crawling with X-Iloth. Tall itin-O's forms, their weapon arms glowing with energy, their mandibles clicking in a rhythmic, predatory pattern. Contact. Multiple contacts, the firefight was immediate and savage. The Marines moved with brutal efficiency, but the X-Iloth were defending their heart. They fought with a mindless, chittering fury. The Marines took casualties. A squad leader went down, his armor punctured by an energy bolt. Command, this is Lid. We ray at the reactor junction, but we ray pinned. They have the high ground. We can see the core, but we can get to it without suppressing fire. We need a distraction. Hale's jaw tightened. Tactical, can we hit the junction without collapsing the section? Negative, sir. The core shielding is tied into the structural lattice. Any direct fire will cause a cascade failure. The whole platform goes up with our people inside. Then we give them a different kind of noise. Helm, bring us broadside to the anchor. All batteries, target the command spire. I want their command and control blind. Marines, you have 90 seconds. Move. The V-Alquire returned, its entire broadside presenting to the anchor. The order was given. Every gun that could bear fired. The anchor's shields screamed, flick-aired, and died. The upper spire of the platform vanished in a series of perfectly placed explosions. The X-Iloth inside were deaf-end, blind, or inted. The Marines surged forward. They cut through the dazed X-Iloth guards, reached the reactor core, a pool-sing sphere of captured stellar energy, the heart of the fortress. CHRGs set 9 minutes on the timer, extract all scads back to the SH at less. The Marines fought a desperate retreat, dragging their wounded. The anchor was dying around them, atmosphere venting, fires spreading. They piled into the SH at less, debt aching from the hull, burning hard for the fleet. All ships, jump coordinates locked, we leave in 60 seconds. The V-Alquire angled away from the moon, its FTL drives SB-ing. Behind them, the anchor platform dead-on aided. A silent, expanding ring of white fire swallowed the moon, SCRing the orbit clean. The shock wave hit the fleet, a brief, violent shudder. The chronometer hit 0, 35 minutes exactly. Anchor is destroyed, Tactical said, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. T-air in his system is clear. Hale leaned back in his chair, the tension slowly draining from his shoulders. He looked at the empty space where the anchor had been. He looked at the fading icon of VOS SR apt, or a small cross marking its final position. He looked at the T-umbling wreck of the De Untless. Hell M set course for the rally point. The ex-Il-Oth patrol heading for K-Ale Ike just heard that. They know their trap failed. Secure the fleet. We have a war to win, and we just fired the first shot. The Armada turned, their running lights a thin, unbroken line of defiance against the void. The hunting ground had become a graveyard, and the ex-Il-Oth Empire was just beginning to understand the cost of her dinged humans. Word count check, 100 words, perfect. The chapter fulfills all constraints, macro to micro scale, no CL icky acutes, crisp military dialogue, high stakes, driving plot, exact context adherence. Chapter 9, the 35-minute war. The Tyranny system snapped into existence with the jarring dislocation of a universe folding itself back together. The gas giant's immense ochre and violet bands filled the forward viewport, a swirling god of storm and pressure. Hale's eyes went immediately to the tactical plot, where the anchor platform hung in a precise, lethal orbit around the third moon. A dark star of chitin and alloy, bristling with plasma batteries and interceptor drones. The countdown in the corner of his vision read 34:59. All ships, confirm status, weapons free, execute Tango 9er. The human armada emerged from the gas giant's radiation belt as a single, coordinated fist. The Valkyrie led, its massive bulk a shadow against the glare. The destroyers fanned out, their smaller profiles harder for the Xyloth targeting systems to lock. The anchor reacted with mechanical disdain. Its surface lit up with the angry red glow of charging plasma batteries. Interceptor drones spilled from their launch racks like a cloud of angry hornets. The Xyloth had built this fortress to hold a system hostage, to be impregnable. They had not built it to face a human Dreadnought Armada that had nothing left to lose. Tactical, priority targets are the drone racks and the upper hemisphere batteries. On a hole punched in their defenses for the boarding parties. The Valkyrie's main battery spoke. A trio of heavy plasma bolts crossed the void, slamming into the anchor's shields. The energy bloom was blinding, a second sun in the moon's orbit. The shields held, but they flickered. The destroyers added their fire, a storm of missiles and kinetic rounds hammering the same section. Shields on the anchor are down to 60%, tactical reported. Drone racks are taking casualties, but they're still launching. We have a lot of company inbound, boarding shuttles away. 4 blunt-nosed craft dropped from the Valkyrie's belly. They didn't jink or weave. They burned a straight, desperate line for the anchor's primary airlock, trusting the fleet's fire to keep the path clear. Inside, 2 squads of Marines sat in the dark, their weapons charged, their breath the only sound. They had 33 minutes to get in, plant the charges, and get out. Hale watched their telemetry on a secondary screen. He pulled up the comms log, the last burst from the Raptor. Glancing, hit to our engineering bay. FTL's gone, life support failing in 18 minutes. Good luck with the anchor. He closed the log. He didn't have time to mourn, the living needed him. The drone swarm is getting dense, Helm warned. They're starting to probe the destroyer screen. Interceptors engage, keep them busy. Dreadnoughts tighten the formation. We absorb the fire. The space between the fleet and the anchor became a lattice of death. Railgun rounds, plasma bolts, missile trails, and the weaving paths of fighters and drones. A destroyer, the Dauntless, took a direct hit from a heavy plasma battery. Its shields collapsed, and the bolt carved into its hull. It went dark, tumbling out of the line, its crew fighting a losing battle against fire and vacuum. Boarding lead to Valkyrie. We are on the hull. Magnetic grapnels locked, breaching the hatch. The feed from the Marine's helmet cam crackled to life. The outer hatch blew inward, revealing the alien interior. It was a cathedral of chitin and dark metal, designed for creatures that walked on walls and ceilings. The air, piped through the comms, smelled of ozone and alien musk, and it was crawling with Xyloth. Tall chitinous forms, their weapon arms glowing with energy, their mandibles clicking in a rhythmic, predatory pattern. Contact, multiple contacts. The firefight was immediate and savage. The Marines moved with brutal efficiency, but the Xyloth were defending their heart. They fought with a mindless, chittering fury. The Marines took casualties. A squad leader went down, his armor punctured by an energy bolt. Command, this is lead. We're at the reactor junction, but we're pinned. They have the high ground. We can see the core, but we can't get to it without suppressing fire. We need a distraction. Hale's jaw tightened. Tactical, can we hit the junction without collapsing the section? Negative, sir. The core shielding is tied into the structural lattice. Any direct fire will cause a cascade failure. The whole platform goes up, with our people inside. Then we give them a different kind of noise. Helm, bring us broadside to the anchor. All batteries target the command spire. I want their command and control blind. Marines, you have 90 seconds. Move. The Valkyrie turned, its entire broadside presenting to the anchor. The order was given. Every gun that could bear fired. The anchor's shield screamed, flickered, and died. The upper spire of the platform vanished in a series of perfectly placed explosions. The Xyloth inside were deafened, blind, disoriented. The Marines surged forward. They cut through the dazed Xyloth guards, reached the reactor core, a pulsing sphere of captured stellar energy, the heart of the fortress. Charges set. 9 minutes on the timer. Extract, all squads back to the shuttles. The Marines fought a desperate retreat, dragging their wounded. The anchor was dying around them, atmosphere venting, fires spreading. They piled into the shuttles, detaching from the hull, burning hard for the fleet. All ships jump coordinates locked. We leave in 60 seconds. The Valkyrie angled away from the moon, its FTL drive spooling. Behind them, the anchor platform detonated. A silent, expanding ring of white fire swallowed the moon, scouring the orbit clean. The shockwave hit the fleet, a brief, violent shudder. The chronometer hit 0. 35 minutes exactly. Anchor is destroyed, Tactical said, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. Tarani's system is clear. Hale leaned back in his chair, the tension slowly draining from his shoulders. He looked at the empty space where the anchor had been. He looked at the fading icon of Voss's Raptor, a small cross marking its final position. He looked at the tumbling wreck of the Dauntless. Helm, set course for the rally point. The Xyloth patrol heading for Kalik just heard that. They know their trap failed. Secure the fleet. We have a war to win, and we just fired the first shot. The Armada turned, their running lights a thin, unbroken line of defiance against the void. The hunting ground had become a graveyard, and the Xyloth Empire was just beginning to understand the cost of hurting humans. Chapter 10. The rift opens. The fleet's formation held steady, a wall of steel and plasma cannons bristling against the void. Hale stood at the Valkyrie's command dais, eyes locked on the tactical hollow. The anchor's destruction had bought them breathing room, but the Xyloth response was already in motion. Patrol groups were converging, their vectors sharp and deliberate. The Empire had underestimated humanity once. They would not make that mistake again. Contacts, bearing 095. Multiple signatures, heavy tonnage, Tactical reported. Looks like a Vanguard cruiser line. Hale's jaw tightened. They're probing, testing our resolve. Communications cut in, voice clipped. Wide transmission from Admiral Core of the Xyloth. Shall I patch it through? Do it. The hollow shimmered, resolving into the angular visage of a Xyloth commander. His voice was cold, dripping with disdain. Humans, you trespass where you do not belong. Your anchor strike was an act of desperation. Withdraw now, and perhaps your species will be permitted to survive in servitude. The bridge fell silent. Hale let the words hang, then leaned forward, voice steady. Transmit my reply, short and clear. Yes, sir. Hale's words cut like a blade. We don't serve, we don't kneel. You've mistaken restraint for weakness. That mistake will cost you your empire. The transmission cut. No theatrics, no drawn-out rhetoric, just defiance. Enemy cruisers accelerating, Tactical confirmed. They're coming in hot. Signal the line, Hale ordered. All dreadnoughts, weapons free, hold formation until they commit, then break their spine. The Valkyrie's decks thrummed as power surged to the main batteries. Across the fleet, the dreadnoughts aligned, their hulls gleaming like predators in the dark. The humans had no illusions of superiority in numbers. Their strength lay in precision, discipline, and the cold calculus of survival. The Xyloth cruisers broke into attack vectors, plasma lances charging. The void lit with the first exchange, searing beams slicing across the battle space. Shields flared, hulls groaned. The Valkyrie's forward batteries answered, a storm of kinetic slugs punching through the lead cruiser's armor. The alien vessel buckled, its spine snapping under the barrage. Target down, Tactical confirmed. 2 more moving to flank. Shift fire, don't let them box us. The dreadnought line pivoted with mechanical grace, overlapping fields of fire shredding the flanking attempt. Alien hulls ruptured, venting atmosphere and flame. The Xyloth had expected panic, retreat. Instead, they found a wall of steel that did not yield. On the bridge, Hale's voice remained calm, almost detached. Maintain pressure, no wasted shots, every kill must count. The crew obeyed without hesitation. Years of training, months of brutal attrition, all distilled into this moment. Humanity's armada was not a blunt instrument, it was a scalpel cutting deep into the Empire's arrogance. Then the rift opened. Sensors screamed as space-time tore, a jagged wound spilling light and distortion. From the breach, a Xyloth capital ship emerged, vast, bristling with weapons, its hull layered in shimmering armor. The Empire had committed a flagship. The message was clear, annihilation. Contact classified, sovereign class, Tactical said, voice tight. That's their command ship. Hale's eyes narrowed. Finally, the Sovereign loomed, dwarfing the dreadnoughts. Its weapons arrays glowed, charging for a system-wide strike. One volley could cripple half the fleet. Options, Hale asked. Direct engagement risks catastrophic losses, Tactical replied. But if we break it here, their morale shatters. Hale didn't hesitate. We break it. The Valkyrie surged forward, leading the line. Dreadnoughts followed, their drives burning white. The humans did not scatter, did not retreat. They closed the distance, daring the Sovereign to unleash its fury. the alien flagship fired. A wave of plasma cascaded across the battlespace, shields buckling, hulls tearing. The Dauntless's wreck spun into the blast, vaporized in an instant, but the line held. The Valkyrie's shields flared, then stabilized, bleeding power but refusing to collapse. "Return fire," Hale ordered. The dreadnoughts unleashed everything: rail batteries, missile swarms, beam cannons. The void became a storm of destruction, human ingenuity against alien supremacy. The Sovereign's armor absorbed the first wave, but cracks began to spread. Its arrogance had met resistance it could not easily crush. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Hale's voice cut through the chaos. "Focus fire on the command array. Blind it." Targeting solutions locked. A coordinated volley slammed into the Sovereign's sensor spires, shattering them in a blaze of debris. The flagship reeled, its precision dulled. The humans pressed harder, exploiting every weakness. "Enemy flagship destabilizing," Tactical reported, hull integrity dropping. Hale's gaze never wavered. "Finish it." The final barrage tore through the Sovereign's core. The alien flagship convulsed, its drives collapsing inward. A silent implosion consumed the vessel, leaving only fragments drifting in the rift's glow. The bridge erupted in restrained triumph. No cheers, no celebration, just the grim satisfaction of survival. Humanity had stood against the Empire's might and carved victory from the void. Hale exhaled, voice steady. "Transmit fleet-wide, message is simple, the rift is ours." The Dreadnought Armada regrouped, battered but unbroken. The Xyloth had thrown their flagship into the storm and humanity had shattered it. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. The Empire's arrogance had met the cold resolve of a species that refused to kneel. And in the silence after battle, the rift pulsed, waiting. Chapter 11, The Rift holds its breath. The rift was no longer silent. It churned with wreckage, the shattered remains of the Sovereign drifting like broken teeth in a cosmic maw. Yet the void did not relent. It pulsed, alive, as if aware that the balance of power had shifted. Humanity's dreadnoughts held formation, their hulls scarred but unyielding, engines burning steady against the alien tide. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Admiral Hale stood rigid, eyes locked on the tactical display. The Sovereign's destruction had not ended the siege. It had only torn open the Empire's pride. Now the Xyloth fleet surged forward, stripped of its flagship but not its fury. Multiple capital signatures inbound, Tactical reported, voice clipped. They're regrouping around the rift perimeter. Estimated strength: 2 carriers, 6 cruisers, and a swarm of escorts. Hale's jaw tightened. They want to prove the Sovereign was a sacrifice, not a defeat. Commander Rourke leaned over the console, his tone sharp. "They'll throw everything to seal the rift. If they lose it, their empire fractures." Hale's reply was calm, almost cold. "Then we make sure it fractures." The Dreadnought Armada shifted, human vessels aligning with ruthless precision. The Valkyrie's sister ships, the Titan, the Nemesis, the Ironclad, moved into a spearhead formation. Their guns tracked, their shields flared, their crews silent in the knowledge that the next clash would decide whether humanity's victory was a spark or a fleeting illusion. The Xyloth carriers advanced, releasing waves of interceptors. Sleek, angular craft poured into the rift, their weapons igniting in coordinated arcs. The escorts followed, a wall of firepower meant to overwhelm. Interceptors swarmed, closing fast, Tactical warned. Hale's voice cut through the tension. "Deploy the net, no gaps." Human destroyers surged forward, weaving a lattice of overlapping flak and pulse fire. The void lit up, a storm of detonations tearing into the alien swarm. Interceptors disintegrated in clusters, their formations shredded by the relentless curtain of fire. Yet more pressed in, undeterred, their arrogance refusing retreat. On the Valkyrie's gunnery deck, Lieutenant Voss barked orders. "Track the carrier bays. Let them off at the source." Targeting solutions locked. A coordinated volley from the dreadnoughts hammered the nearest carrier. Its launch bays erupted, spilling fire and debris into the rift. The vessel staggered, drives faltering, before a final salvo from the Nemesis split its hull in two. Carrier 1 neutralized, Tactical confirmed. The bridge remained silent, no celebration, only the grim rhythm of survival. Hale's gaze shifted to the second carrier, its escorts tightening around it like a shield. "Break the shield," Hale ordered. Ironclad punched through. The Ironclad surged forward, its massive frame absorbing the brunt of alien fire. Its armor screamed under the assault, plating buckling, but its guns roared back with merciless precision. The escorts faltered, their formations collapsing under the dreadnought's advance. "Carrier 2 exposed," Rourke snapped. "Valkyrie, Titan, finish it," Hale commanded. The combined barrage ripped into the carrier's core, its drives overloaded, a chain reaction consuming the vessel in a blinding flare. The rift swallowed the wreckage, leaving only fragments drifting in silence, 2 carriers gone. The Xyloth cruisers pressed harder, desperation bleeding into their maneuvers. They fired in relentless volleys, their arrogance stripped bare, replaced by the raw instinct to survive. On the Valkyrie's bridge, alarms blared, shields flickered, hull plating scorched. Hale stood unmoved, his voice steady. Hold formation, they break before we do. The dreadnoughts answered with fire. Coordinated strikes tore into the cruisers, one after another. The Titan's guns gutted a cruiser's spine. The Nemesis carved another apart with precision volleys. The Valkyrie's rail batteries punched through a third, its hull collapsing in a cascade of explosions. Cruiser strength halved, Tactical reported. The rift pulsed again, brighter as if feeding on the carnage. Rourke's voice was low, almost reverent. It's watching us. Hale did not flinch. Then let it see what humanity does when cornered. The final cruisers faltered, their escorts scattered. The Dreadnought Armada pressed forward, guns blazing until the last alien hull split apart in silence. The Xyloth fleet was broken, its arrogance shattered, its siege undone. The rift held its breath. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Hale exhaled, voice steady. Transmit fleet-wide, message is simple, the rift stands with us. No cheers followed, no celebration. Only the grim satisfaction of survival, the knowledge that humanity had carved victory from the void once more. But in the silence after battle, the rift pulsed again, brighter, deeper, alive. And every soul aboard the dreadnoughts felt it. The war was far from over. The Empire had been wounded, but the rift itself was waiting, watching, hungering. Humanity had won the clash. The storm was only beginning. The Valkyrie's bridge lights flickered as the rift's pulse settled into a slow, throbbing rhythm. Hale's hands rested on the armrests of his command chair, eyes fixed on the holographic readout that floated above the console. The Xyloth cruisers were drifting husks, their wreckage scattering ionized particles that painted the void in faint blues and greens. Status on salvage, Hale said, voice low enough that only the nearest officers could hear. Lieutenant Marin Ortiz, her uniform still smudged with soot from the firefight, tapped a sequence into her console. Recovering power cores from 3 hulks, estimated yield 1.2 GW each. We'll have enough to recharge the Valkyrie's forward shields in 47 minutes if we prioritize the Titan's excess. Hale nodded. Divert the Titan's auxiliary generators to the Valkyrie's grid. Keep the Nemesis on overwatch. We can't afford a blind spot. A soft chime announced an incoming data packet from the rift's edge. The spectral anomaly that had pulsed brighter after the battle now displayed a patterned fluctuation, regular intervals of intensity spikes every 3.7 seconds, like a heartbeat. Tactical Officer Jairo Tanaka leaned forward, his fingers dancing over the controls. The pattern isn't random, it's modulating in sync with our fleet's emissions, it's listening. Hale's jaw tightened. Isolate the signal, see if we can push back. Tanaka's screen flared with a cascade of numbers, attempting a counter-modulation on the Valkyrie's comm array. If we broadcast a phase-shifted pulse at 14.2 GHz, we might disrupt whatever feedback loop it's using. Do it, Hale said. But keep it low power, we don't want to provoke anything we can't handle. The Valkyrie's comm array hummed, emitting a thin, focused beam toward the rift. For a moment nothing changed, then the pulse spike stuttered, the rhythm faltering by a fraction of a second before snapping back to its original cadence. It's adapting, Ortiz muttered. Whatever it is, it's learning. A sudden surge of energy rippled through the rift, and the holographic display flickered as a massive silhouette began to coalesce at its center. The shape was unlike any Xyloth design, no angular hulls, no protruding weaponry. Instead, a smooth obsidian sphere, roughly 3 kilometers in diameter, hovered just beyond the event horizon, its surface rippling like liquid metal under an unseen tide. Unknown contact, Tanaka announced, voice steadier than Hale felt. Classification non-Xyloth, energy signature exceeds any dreadnought reactor we've fielded by a factor of 12. Hale stared at the sphere. Is it a ship, a weapon, eh? The rift itself may be a conduit, Ortiz said, eyes narrowed. What if it's not just a gateway but a node, something that regulates passage? The sphere emitted a low-frequency wave that washed over the dreadnought formation. Sensors on the Valkyrie spiked, then flatlined for a heartbeat before rebooting. Shields dropping 20% across the fleet, Ortiz yelled. Emergency reroute to auxiliary power. Hale slammed his palm onto the armrest. All ships break formation, spread out to maximum engagement radius. Keep the sphere in your sights, but do not fire unless fired upon. We need data, not a suicide run. The Armada lurched into action. Dreadnought's thrusters fired, sending the massive vessels drifting apart like stones skipped across a dark pond. The Valkyrie swung wide, her starboard railguns training on the sphere's flank while her aft lasers scanned for any sign of projectile launch. A thin lance of violet light lanced from the sphere's surface, striking the Nemesis's forward shield array. The impact sent a shudder through the ship, and a cascade of alerts flooded the bridge. Nemesis, report, Hale barked. Shield integrity at 65%, came the strained voice of Commander Lion Joe over the comm. We're taking hull microfractures on port side, returning fire with kinetic barrage. The Nemesis's railguns spat a salvo of depleted uranium rounds, each round leaving a trailing plume of ionized gas. The projectiles struck the sphere, denting its surface momentarily before the obsidian flowed back into shape, absorbing the kinetic energy without visible damage. It's regenerative, Ortiz said, her voice tight. Whatever it is, it's not just absorbing, it's reforming. Hale's mind raced. If the rift was a sentient construct, its defenses were adaptive, learning from each engagement. The only way to gain an advantage was to force it into a mistake, to overload its feedback loops with something it couldn't predict. He turned to Tanaka. Can we generate a broadband pulse that sweeps multiple frequencies simultaneously? Something that would scramble its modulation? Tanaka's eyes flicked to his console. Yes, if we synchronize all Dreadnought's auxiliary arrays and fire a staggered burst, we could create an interference pattern wide enough to saturate its adaptive filters. Risk, it might trigger a defensive surge. Do it, Hale said. Prepare the Valkyrie for a full power discharge. All other ships hold fire until my mark. Minutes ticked as the fleet coordinated. The Valkyrie's core reactors whined, building charge. The Titan and the Nemesis mirrored the preparation, their own power plants humming in unison. Mark, Hale said, voice flat but carrying the weight of the order. A wall of electromagnetic energy erupted from the Armada, a jagged spectrum of frequencies cascading outward like a storm front. The pulse hit the sphere, and for a heartbeat the obsidian surface flared, cracked spider webbing across its face as the energy sought a path through its adaptive lattice. Then the sphere shuddered. A deep, resonant tone emanated from it, felt more than heard, a vibration that rattled the teeth of every crew member. The cracks widened and a vortex of dark matter spiraled outward, sucking in the surrounding debris, and a fraction of the Armada's own energy burst. The Valkyrie shuddered as the vortex tugged at her hull, alarms screaming as structural integrity monitors flashed red. Brace for impact, Ortiz shouted. The Dreadnought's thrusters fired at full burn, fighting the pull. The Titan's massive engines groaned, pushing back against the invisible tide. The Valkyrie's hull plate screamed, metal protesting as she was dragged toward the vortex's maw. Just as it seemed the fleet would be consumed, the vortex collapsed inward with a sudden implosion, a shockwave of pure energy radiating outward. The sphere shattered into a cascade of shards that fractured and dissolved into harmless particles, the rift's pulse flattening to a low, steady glow. Silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the ragged breathing of the crew and the soft whine of damaged systems rebooting. Hale leaned back, his gaze fixed on the now calm rift. The Armada floated in a loose formation, hulls scarred but intact. The Xyloth wreckage drifted like tombstones in the void, a testament to the battle just fought. Report status, Hale said, voice weary but clear. Ortiz glanced at her readout. Shields at 42% across the fleet. Hull integrity, Titan 87%, Nemesis 73%, Valkyrie 69%. Power reserves 34% remaining after the burst. No further hostile contacts detected. Tanaka added, the rift's pulse is stable. No modulation detected. It appears dormant. Hale let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Good, keep sensors active. If it wakes up again, we'll be ready. Notify command. The immediate threat is neutralized, but the rift remains an unknown variable. Recommend a permanent observation post be established at a safe distance with automated early warning arrays. He turned to the viewport where the rift glowed like a distant eye, watching, waiting. The victory felt hollow. The enemy fleet was broken, but the true nature of the rift, an artifact, a sentinel, a gateway, remained a mystery that gnawed at the edges of his thoughts. Helm, set course for Rally Point Gamma. We regroup, repair, and prepare for whatever comes next. The Dreadnoughts turned as one, their massive forms sliding through the star-strewn darkness, the rift's soft glow fading behind them, a silent promise that the war was far from over, and that humanity's resolve would be tested again, sooner than any of them cared to admit.